About 1 year old,
Where did you come from?
Bronx, New York. Yes.
Were you a good student?
Yeah, I got all A's. I don't mean to brag. I'd noticed all my life that black people were not treated right. They didn't have homes except in 2 segregated little areas, and I just felt that ought to be ended, and the town opened up to all equal.
And those were what areas, Dad? Do you remember?
Yeah, the end of San Diego Avenue and Elm Street, those 2 areas.
And then by Eastern Way, I think, in Meadowland?
Oh, wait a minute, what did I say?
San Diego Avenue and Elm. I think Elm is
No,
right. Elm,
Elm Street and Feronia Way.
Feronia, and Eastern Way.
Eastern Way, yeah.
Right, and those were certain districts,
Yeah,
right?
forget that. It was normal, natural, and right, so it wasn't difficult.
I think it wasn't difficult for you, Dad, because you were always inspired and passionate about human rights.
Right.
Is that right? But I think not everybody felt the way you did,
Right.
even in the North. I think there was undercurrents that didn't show, but you saw that sometimes when people needed a haircut, they needed to go out of town.
Yeah,
And didn't they go to Passaic or Hackensack?
right.
And you wondered why. And you
The
explored
women particularly.
the women in particularly. And there was a problem, right, with that?
Well,
Because
it seemed the problem, yeah.
you realized that sometimes they were refused because
They were refused what?
to get their hair done
In Rutherford,
occasionally.
yeah.
And was that a problem because of the training of the beauticians?
Yeah, but I think that, although I don't understand the detail, that women's hair, women who are black, has more difficult or a different
Hair
procedure,
structure. Right.
and they have to work a different way. I don't know the details. I mean,
Right, and I wouldn't expect you to know the hair cutting and perming, but I read about that, and I remember that you said that you needed to find out why their hair wasn't being cut, and what it led to was you realized that the beauticians were being trained different. Well, they were
they
not
were
being.
not trained to do black hair,
Okay, that's the bottom line.
and I don't really know the detail of specifically what they didn't learn, but they didn't learn to cut black hair.
I think black beauticians learned how to cut black hair,
Yeah.
and white beauticians only learned how to cut white hair.
Yeah, well,
And
that's,
I think that, didn't you tell me that you needed to actually go to the officials of the beauticians union, or whether it be their schools, and push for training everybody the same
yeah,
way?
we tried. I don't know.
And I believe that those laws were changed, and now everyone was trained to cut every type of hair.
That's the way it should be, yeah.
Mhm. And how about in any other areas, like, for instance, employment? Was that a concern of the Civil Rights Commission? Public accommodation and also employment?
Yeah, they all were a concern, but you catch me, I don't remember much of the detail.
But I think that you made a lot of effort, along with the other commissioners, to see how many of different ethnic and races were being employed. And you found that there were black people being employed, but sometimes they were, their employment was not commensurate with their ability. So sometimes they didn't rise
Right,
up the line for promotions.
right.
And I think you helped keep track that that our community of Rutherford was aware of that.
Yeah.
And then how about housing? That was
Well,
a tough one, wasn't
That
it?
was the toughest of all, because they were segregated into two areas,
Mm-hmm.
and on the Eastern Way and
Mm-hmm.
Elm Street.
And so did you have to meet with realtors or?
Let's say we let them know about it, but I don't remember.
Probably Peter Van Winkle or one of the Van Winkles helped.
Yeah, I talked to them all about it, but I don't remember the details these days.
We don't need the details, Dad. It was 50 years ago.
I know.
But just the idea that you probably talked with realtors as far as couples looking for a new home,
Right,
that they should have the ability to look anywhere in Rutherford,
Right.
not just in two sections.
right.
And sometimes you also needed to talk with some of the apartment owners,
Yes.
because isn't there pretty many apartments in Rutherford?
Yeah, there's quite a few. And there were no blacks in apartments.
Mm-hmm.
And we let it be known that it was time to start being open and not discriminate.
And I think you told me that slowly that did happen.
Yes. Well, it certainly did.
And I think you also helped with a publication that explained what civil rights was, the new act, and the fairness for all. And I think you handed out those
Well,
publications.
we developed a brochure, and I think, I hope this is correct, that we distributed it to every house in town.
I think I read that.
And somebody who was my daughter, named Sharon, was a leader in the distribution.
I do remember going house to house, whether it be for elections or for
She was
civil rights.
She was probably trying to elect Rainston Wesp too,
Yeah.
to the borough government.
So, yeah, I think you got us involved. We had an interesting upbringing, I did.
She was circularizing the town all the time for me.
Right, well, kids have a lot of energy. Back in 1964, one of those council meetings, I guess, with Will Reenstra and many others, there was a Rutherford Civil Rights Commission founded, is that right?
Yeah.
And who got to be the first chairman?
Well, I think I put it together,
Right.
and there was nobody else, so I was a chairman.
Right, and I think you became the chairman more than once.
Yes.
I think you were a chairman and followed up on all these things and then continued for years and years. One memory I have that inspired me because of you was when we traveled to see your folks when they retired to Florida, and we'd go by car. Each fall or each spring, we would travel, and it always shocked me that when we got to Georgia and Florida, that when we got out to use a restroom or when we went to the fountain.
They were white only, and no black.
Right, it would say white only at the drinking fountain.
Right.
And the restroom too. And even sometimes in the restaurants.
Right.
And it just, coming from New Jersey, we didn't have that. But down south,
Right.
as I was growing up, of course, that would have been in the late 50s, early 60s, that still existed. and I don't know how long that existed, but that always reminded me of your passion. So those are memories for me.
Okay.
So I have some too. So anything else that is important about the Civil Rights Commission?
Good Lord.
What about the future? We all have futures, no matter how old we
And from
are.
this point on,
Yeah,
Yeah.
not particularly by you, but what is your hope?
I hope is that there be not even the slightest vestige of discrimination in the United States, and then eventually the world. Because I saw the unfairness of what was happening, and I wanted people to be treated equally.
The unfairness.
It really upset me to see people not treated fairly.
And it didn't matter what race,
No,
as long as everyone would get a fair chance.